So there were a few things that I left unmentioned in my previous video, so I'm trying to go over these now. One thing you can do if you want to change any settings about Wrye Bash, you go into the Mobi folder and take the bash default ini, make a copy of that, and name it to bash ini. Wrye Bash doesn't come with a bash ini, so if you update the program, your settings won't get overwritten. If you now copy in a new Mobi folder, this file, because it doesn't exist there, will not get overwritten. If you open it, you see a lot of text, and everything is commented out by a semicolon at the start of the line. So if you want to use any settings, you would go there and remove that, or just copy the whole line and remove it from there so you can see the defaults. This one will set the path to your installers folder. This is the location where all the mods are stored. Maybe you want to change it perhaps because your game is on a quick SSD that doesn't have much room and you can just store the mods on a normal hard drive, or for whatever reason. I, for example, would like to have my bash installers actually in this directory, which is just, on the root modding instead of being in the GOG folder. So I'm just going to enter this one, take this, put it here, and now I obviously also want to grab the stuff that was here, move it into this folder, and then we can launch Wrye Bash and see if it finds it. As you can see, it still finds all the mods I installed last time. This also works, especially with the total path, if this would be another drive now. Another thing that you can set, there are some programs down here that you can launch through Wrye Bash, usually only the game, the CS, and some home settings. But you could also, for example, go to the very end. There are a lot of options here. And what I like to do, I put my loot or boss, whatever you're using there. In this case, there is no shortcut for loot, which you find if you now look for loot. There is nothing here. So you still have to use the boss one as it works the same. You best copy that line, uncomment it, and then find the path where loot was installed. For me, it's this path. So I'm just going to put that in here. And now if I restart it, there will be a boss icon that really links to loot at the bottom. What you now can do, you see, I still have my load order on. So if I was to edit anything outside of Wrye Bash, as soon as I tap back in, it would tell me the load order has reverted. But if I now just change something that loot wouldn't like, launch it from here, it's the same window as yesterday. I click on sort and apply, and when I close it again, you need to close it, the changes are here. Because I launched it through Wrye Bash knows that it will do changes now and allow them and only block it afterwards, which is pretty nice. Another thing that I could mention while I'm on loot, you can see the results here. Like you see the unofficial Oblivion patch, which records, which tags are recommended, some notes about this. So it's always a good idea to check through everything. The bash tags will get imported automatically, but sometimes there's another warning, like don't use only for a new game, don't use for existing game, or don't use those two together or something like that. So you should always check if loot says anything interesting about your mods. There are some more programs you can set. For example, another one that I used yesterday, Xedit. You can just, it's at the top of those somewhere here. And you would just, uncomment this. And set the path here. Restart it. And now you can open it through Wrye Bash. I find it quite nice sometimes when I clean a lot of mods or open a lot of mods. I have my toolbar down there and all the usually used programs I can just start. You can move them around as well. And another way to bring icons down here is if you, let's close this, do a shortcut, for example, to my modding directory. I could create a link here, give it a nice name. In the Mopey apps directory, just drop a link here. And then when I start it, it's at the end of this list. I can actually just open this directory. You can put whatever you want in there. You can put other apps that you don't want to set in the ini file, or folders, or your screenshot folder, or your saves folder, whatever works for you. So let's close this. And let's talk about backing up our clean DLCs. It is not important if you're using the GOG version like I am, but if you're using the Steam version and ever want to verify your game integrity, it would notice that the DLCs all are not what it's used to, and it would probably just download the old ones and you could do through all the trouble of cleaning them again. So what we're going to do, we go into our bash installers directory, create a new directory and call it cleaned DLCs. And then you go into your data directory and now you can just copy the official ones that you cleaned, copy them and put them here. Shivering Isles is not needed to clean or to copy because it's, as you can see at the file size, it's just blank. It's only used to load the stuff. Everything that the game changes is actually added to the main file Oblivion. Now we have those here. And if Steam ever decides to revert the changes you did, you can just, right-click install here. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is a mod with a wizard installer. For that I've downloaded the animated window lighting system, which you can just move in here. You can see that it has a wizard because there's this little wand here. So if you right-click it and select install, it will automatically select the wizard if it's there. You can install it without a wizard if you go to advanced and just take install current. You can also, do the manual wizard here. Auto wizard is if the author puts some default options there and you run auto wizard, it will pick the default options if they exist. As you can see here, there is a lot of options. And we probably don't want to do this manually, so we're going to run the wizard. It will ask you a lot of questions. You can read them, and you should answer them. Basically, for this, I take the advanced smoking chimneys. I don't use this one, and I don't want to pick my windows. I don't use Quartz texture pack. You can click here to open the window in large because that's really small. Like Brumback or Smeldar. Let's just go with this. This one, you can see all the options here. Blue, perhaps a yellow, a bright yellow is nice. I don't use any texture pack for Shivering Isles. Multicolor is nice, like here. And then, once you're here, you can probably make this a bit larger so you can read any notes if there are any. It will show you what it configured. And then you click on Apply these selections and install this package. As you can see, you do not need to run the wizard if you don't want to, but some mods that come with a wizard really have dozens or hundreds of options here. And while you can just, check them here if you want to, it's probably not recommended because it's a lot of work. Another thing is, what if a mod is packed in a way that Wrye Bash doesn't recognize it? For example, one mod that was recently released, MCA Melee Combat Editions. If you look inside, it has a main files, which is, the USB and an ini file, and it has optional files. And those are in these optional files, more subfolders, and Wrye Bash will not be able to see this, as you can see here. If I move it in here, it will only install the main thing, which is also pretty nice that it manages to find those. So if you're only interested in the main thing, you can just install. But if you're interested in the optionals, you need to unpack. And there are pretty much two ways to do this. Let's rename this to... First way would be to make it simple. This is where you treat this folder as if it was inside the data folder. So you go in here and you have the main files and you take everything that is in here and put it there. And then you go to optional and perhaps you want slower dodge animations. You take this as if it was in data and put it in here. And then you just delete the rest. No problem, it's still in your zip file. So now this directory looks as if it was inside the data folder, as if you installed it manually inside the data folder, but instead of the data folder, you installed it into here. So now if you check it in Wrye Bash, it will show a bunch of more files. The other way that I actually like, as you can see, I managed to get Windows to shut up. You would extract it again. You can also do this with 7-zip. And then you do something that's basically a BAIN installer. You go in here and take the main files and name them 00 core. Just as in the other mod yesterday, core is usually that thing that you always have to install. And now you have two more options that you take one level higher. Perhaps take the readme as well. So this folder is empty now, you can just delete it. And inside here there should be no data folder, so you go in there and put the meshes one layer higher. So the data folder is empty and you can delete it. Same here. So data is empty and you can delete it. And now you call this like 10 shorter recoil and 20 slower dodge animations. The reason why I picked 10 and 20 is that for many mods that have lots of options, like this one, if you have several that go like 001, you're usually supposed to pick only one. These are alternatives. Danified didn't do that because, well, there aren't really anything that exclusive, but this one has different ESPs and the last one checked will win. So you just, check 1001, 1002. For everything that has the same numbers, you're only supposed to check one. And since you can use shorter recoil and shorter slower dodge animations together, there's no reason to put them both in 10. It doesn't really matter as long as you know what you're doing, but it's quite nice to keep to a structure that's simple. So now you can just go in here, click core to install. And if you want shorter recoil, you just click on this, or you don't, whatever you want. Now let's install this. And if you then notice, oh no, I don't want shorter recoil anymore, I don't like this, you can go in here, just uncheck it, and then your installer will turn orange. Orange means there are some dirty entries. Dirty means they are installed, but with the current configuration they should not be installed. So if you right click on here and select Anneal, it will just remove everything that should not be installed, and it's a nice green again. Magic to that, I also downloaded two simple replacers, which is a grass replacer that replaces a lot of grass. And just move them in here. And a replacer that replaces only one grass. It does not show any conflicts now because those are not active. So let's just say I install Dead Leaves ground cover first. Click install. And it installed one grass. And then I install this, and now it turns yellow because there is a conflict with a higher one, and this one got overwritten. So basically you won't see anything of this because the one file that it brought is overwritten by a higher mod. So what do you do now? You just move this down here. Now if this is a bright yellow, because it should be overwritten by a higher mod, but it is not yet. This is here the underwritten one. Now you can click on this and select O'Neill. And then this one turns yellow because now it's overwritten by this. And this one turns green because now it's no longer a higher conflict, but this one wins. So now you would have this general grass replacer and this one that replaces just one grass with fallen leaves. Now the last thing we're going to do is create a very simple land of detail. Like if you install some landscape mods, sometimes they will bring their own land, but if you install a combination of lots of mods, it's pretty much impossible to have a pre-made landscape mesh that matches all of those because those landscapes cover a huge area of cells. Luckily, we can just generate it ourselves. For that, I downloaded this one and the landscape lot generator. Now we go into data because this one needs to be installed in data. We just grab everything here and move it in here. And for this one, we can just extract it wherever we want. Now we have a bunch of files here. Those are batch files that will run this exe with some pre-made settings. There is another tool that's the multi-purpose GUI that will allow you to set settings, you know, in a nice interface, and some more options you won't have with just running the batch files. You could just download it and play around with it. For our simple use, I'm not using it. I'll just go in here and press this button. It will load all the active mods and then start working. Ultimate has a pretty high resolution. It might not have a big impact on performance on a modern computer, but if it has, you can just, you know, rerun it with mid-res, high-res, whatever works best for your setup. There are some other buttons here, like this one. This will create new normal maps. And this one, which will create new color maps if you have a lot of replacers installed, because those ones here are for the base game. Might be nice to run them. I won't do that now because it will take quite a while. But yeah, there's also something that can be done with pre-made settings, with nice explanations if you run the multi-purpose GUI. As you can see here now, this is done, so we close it. And the other one, this one will just create the landscape, like the hills and the grass texture that put onto it. But everything else, like trees or buildings or whatever, is not put onto this yet. This is why we downloaded this. It's just a file we run, that's all. You just double click it and it will start working. It will take all your currently active mods and then start replacing the trees and the buildings if they have matching models that can be used for that. In the original game, a rock or whatever would have to be flagged to be seen in the distance, which is on the one hand nice because you probably don't want to see all rocks. In 2006 this would have totally killed your computer. Now it's probably not that murderous anymore. But this program doesn't care if the objects are flagged to be seen by distance or not. If there is a matching model, it will use it. That's why it just scans all your ESPs and your whole load order and then looks what buildings are where, and then it looks if those buildings have any kind of mesh that can be used for this, and then it will put everything together. I paused this for a second while it was running because it's pretty boring. As you can see here, you can close this application now. And that's already it, except for a few hiccups here and there, which are mod specific and should not be really put here. This is all that's needed to have roughly matching distant land to whatever mods you have installed. So if now you go in here, you can see, except for those two mods that I just installed, which we would correctly, run boss, sort, apply, close, so they are in a good position. Well, not that it matters much. Then we would rebuild our bash patch, which I won't do on video now because it takes forever. The landscape does not add any files here. It's just files in your data folder. It's those files here, but no ESP here, so don't be surprised because there's nothing here. One thing you will notice now, if you go into your installers, it might take a while because now it will scan those newly added files to see if they match something that it already has. Unofficial Oblivion and Shivering Isles patch turned yellow. That's because they also brought some landscape load, and also they had some conflicts with the animated window lighting system. That's because the unofficial Oblivion patch brought some streamlined fixed meshes for those, and the animated windows lighting system obviously replaced them with files that were made to be lit at night. And the patch also has some landscape meshes that were made to look better, but now we've replaced it with our own generated one, so don't worry about this. And that's it. Enjoy the game.